Test on one day. India, England, Australia. For a lucky big three-side slayer. What a player. What a player. What a player.
Welcome back, everyone, to yet another episode of Waadaplaya. This is Suman and Sanjay today. The guests we are talking today are part of leading independent voice of cricket audio, providing worldwide commentary on the internet. It's a ball-by-ball commentary on cricket, bear in mind. They have been heard by fans in almost 200 countries, from Suriname to South Korea, Myanmar to Malaysia, Namibia to North Pole, all united by knowledge, passion, and pure joy of communicating cricket. Please welcome Guerilla Cricket and Tony Bishop, Nakul Pandey, and Nigel Walker. Welcome to the show, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you very much.
Delighted
Great to be here.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Give us and our viewers a story about Guerilla Cricket. Who inspired this, inception, all the history, and we are interested to know about the jingle. I particularly am interested about how did you come up with the intro jingle of Guerilla?
Fair, do you want to kick us off there?
I'll kick us off. Yeah. So, I mean, Guerilla started out as something else that collapsed. I think called Test Match Sofa, which had been owned by a magazine and I've been involved with since 2009. And basically that fell apart. And me and my other founding member, Hendo, didn't know what to do. We were a bit lost and we wanted to carry on doing the cricket. There was nothing going on. And we sat down with a couple of members who are now with us now, and we sat in a coffee shop and said, do we want to do this? The company that had owned us actually didn't want us to carry on commentating because they still owned the name to the last thing. So we sat there and we said, you know what, sod this. We want to carry on doing this. So we sat down, we came up with the name Guerilla Cricket, and then we put some calls out for people to join us to do our first series, which is actually in England versus India in 2014. It was going to be a cracking series and we really wanted to do it. We managed to scrounge some space to do it from. It was an old TV studio that we'd been in before, and the guy there really liked us, so we got it together and we started up there. And then about 9 months later, we were booted out of there, and that was the year of the Ashes. And the bar where we used to drink downstairs from the TV studio was a sports bar. And we said to the guy, look, we're homeless, but we want to do the Ashes. Can we broadcast from your bar? And he was like, yeah, fine. So we did the Ashes in 2015 from a sports bar in London. And then we out of there, then we found someone else's flat. And then we settled up where we've been now, which is a flat that I own. And we've been there for about 4 years. So we're kind of stable now, which is all good fun. Yeah, it's been quite a journey.
And jingles? How did you come up with jingles?
Shall I take that one? Or?
With them?
Yeah. Well, we musically, that's been part of what we've done right from the outset. Sort of, it's part of our listener experience. I think there are two things which I think are central to us. One is our audience participation. So the fact that whenever we are commentating, interaction with our audience, conversation, we try to be as if you were watching cricket with your friends at the cricket, and conversation will roam and meander or wherever you want to take it, whilst also keeping your eyes firmly fixed on what's in front of you. The other thing, as you rightly say, is the music. We have, I suppose 10, 15 contributors who are comedians, musicians around the world who lovingly and always willingly create those jingles for us. So whatever aspects of play, it might be a new batsman in, it might be a new bowler, it might be a drop catch, it might be a wicket, a bye, something ridiculous that's gone on that is like a misfield or a crazy runner. Over the years, and for every series, we've been able to create with that amazing network, and obviously some are more regular contributors perhaps than others. I'm going to say Mog Jeff right up front, because in case they watch this, they'll keep loving us.
Should also say Richard Peel, who's
Richard Peel, certainly, yeah. And literally at a drop of a hat, they will turn stuff around overnight. Part of the nature of being global, I think. One is an Australian living in the US, somewhere near Indiana, I think. Another one's in Melbourne. We have another in Munich. I mean, literally, it's a very sort of global community. And even even things like we did a quiz to raise some serious money for charity recently. Overnight, back came a whole load of jingles for that. We did the Big Bash with a bunch of players we hadn't necessarily commentated on before. Again, within 24 hours, they had their own jingle. So their sort of speed of turnaround and creativity is just phenomenal. So we're happy to give them a huge shout out.
Absolutely.
Yeah. On the intro theme itself, the 3-minute pop song, like all great pop songs. So that was composed by one of the initial founder members, along with the two Nigels, James Sherwood, who's made a very good career for himself as a musical comedian here in the UK. Phenomenally creative. So basically, running with the idea of guerrilla cricket and revolutionary, based around these rhyming couplets of revolutionaries and cricketers. Vladimir, Lenin, O'Brien, Kevin, and such like. And that spun into this theme tune, which, even though I've been involved with guerrilla cricket as an on-air contributor since late 2014, every time it comes on at the start of a day's play, it gets you in that mode of, right, we're here now, we're broadcasting.
So current events, and let's link up to guerrilla cricket. Andrew Tye in BBL has been trending in the past 2-3 days or so. So if you guys were to commentate on that particular event, so one of you take a shot at it so that our viewers will know what guerrilla cricket is all about and how different it is.
Knuckle, do you want to go first?
I don't mind taking a go at this.
Go for it, because I didn't actually see it. I've read a lot about it, but I didn't actually see it.
James Vince on 98. Sixers on the verge of qualifying and knocking out the Perth Scorchers. In comes Andrew Tye. He's bowled a wide down the leg side. Vince is denied a BBL 100. He's looking at Tye with a look of absolute abject dejection on his face. Was that deliberate? Shades of Suraj Randeep bowling a deliberate no ball to deny her in the Sehwag 100. This one will run on run. But more importantly, the Sydney Sixers have advanced and knocked out the Perth Scorchers.
Very
Perfect.
good.
Terrific.
I've got to say, hang on a moment though, guys. It's what actually, in a competitive, grown-up game of cricket, is what was he supposed to do? To lob him a gentle underarm, so our beloved James Vince could smack it out of the park.
Just
This is a tough, grown-up, professional competition going on here. For what it's worth, I don't think he meant it, but I believe I'm in a minority. I just think
I haven't seen it, but I'm with Tone here. It's a game of cricket. He might have been trying something. He might have gone down the leg side. It might have been deliberate. Does it matter? It doesn't really matter.
Well,
I mean, it's a storm in a teacup, really.
Oh, it's one of those things that because the game was not actually particularly close, it's one of those things that runs and runs. And also because we're in between test series right now. If that had happened, this Big Bash has been going on for a long time. If that had happened during the India-Australia series, I don't think it would have got very much attention. It is one of those slightly weird things. I did say in my sort of the sample commentary, was it deliberate? I wasn't coming down on either side, because you can make a call either way on it. And it's important to note with guerrilla cricket, we're often, we describe ourselves as irreverent, and we're often described that way. But it's also true that we're not shock jocks. We're not out there to try and create controversy where none exists.
Absolutely.
We call it as we see it in the truest sense of the word, and that will be different from every single. Like, if I'm on commentary or Bear's on commentary or Tony, we'll all see it slightly differently. We will call it as we see it. And not try and be anything other than authentically ourselves. It's a bit cheeky from Andrew Tye if he did bowl a deliberate wide. Maybe he was trying a slow ball bouncer that Vince was going to smash up in the air and get caught. Who knows? I think it's a bit cheeky and it's not ideal, but it's the kind of thing that teams on the verge of losing do all the time.
Well, it was a schools under 10s game. You take that kind of sporting view and you go, poor lad, he's already been out twice. We'll give him one more go and bowl him an easy one. You don't do that in a professional game of cricket. I don't care what the stage of the game is. I just think Tye was being competitive. I think he was looking for a way for Vince not to score. I don't think he thought, I really have never liked James Vince. Always gets out for a 30-odd, nicks off to slip or caught behind. Continues to let England get down. I'm an Aussie. I'm going to deny him of his 100. Of course, I don't think that went through his mind for a moment. I think he just thought, I'm going to bowl the best ball I can for the moment right now. And it just didn't quite work out for Vince. In a way, it didn't work out for Andrew Tye, unless you take the view that any publicity is good publicity. But, it's a grown-up game. That's it.
the story is that Vince actually got more than 30 runs without nicking off, isn't it? Rather than the fact that he got,
It's interesting how
not out of a 98.
It's interesting how these narratives develop. James Vince is a very good player at limited overs level below international cricket. He's just, because we watch every single England men's game, our view of players sometimes gets coloured by what they do in international cricket, which is, I guess, fair enough.
So was the guy with was that the same match? The guy with the one-handed catch and the beer in the other hand?
Yep.
I watched the replay of that more than I watched Andrew Ty's ball. I mean, I think it possibly just went through the hands of another guy in the crowd that made it easier for him.
Yep.
But, if you want to talk about poise, balance, stability, and a certain degree of chutzpah and, je ne sais quoi, this bloke had it in spades, didn't he?
Well, exactly. He'd have got a lot of kudos on Guerilla Cricket.
Yeah. What, for not spilling his beer? Yeah.
Not spilling his beer and catching the ball one-handed. Absolutely. That's quality.
Yeah, to be honest, we've been starved of crowd catch action during cricket in COVID, so that would have got us talking for at least a couple of minutes.
Absolutely, yeah.
Moving from down under to a bit closer to home, as in where four of us are based in England, apart from Suman. So one of the things which strikes me, England are doing so well in test matches, so well in international cricket overall, but accessibility to the game. 2005 was the last test series which was telecast on terrestrial TV. Ever since then, it's all based on subscription, which probably makes it very difficult for a certain section of society to view the game, get hooked onto it, etc. What are your views on it, and how do you think this has impacted 15-16 years of growing cricket in the country?
Do you want to take first punt at that one, Bear?
Yeah, I'll go for this. Well, I mean, I think we all think. I mean, this is the problem, isn't it? The problem with sport is that live sport is an absolute premium because if you know the result, you don't particularly watch the whole game afterwards. So the premium where, you got download telly here, Netflix, Amazon, all these things, it's all downloadable. You can watch it when you like. You can't watch live sport when you like. You have to watch it when it's on. And therefore, it becomes a premium. Now, I worked on the World Cup last year doing a radio feed for Channel 2, which is a world radio feed. And I went around the entire World Cup. And at one point, I was in Somerset, and I was sitting down with an ex-international cricketer. I'm not going to say his name. And he works for Sky. And we were having this chat, and it was quite involved. And he talked to the Sky people, and basically the Sky people don't care. The point is that the audience can be quite low. They're just worried about subscriptions, and that's how all the platforms see it. So that if they do live sport, they can get people to pay for their platform, and it doesn't matter because they're not relying on per se on advertising revenue. So it's all about capturing people who want to watch that sport. So if you can clamp it down in your space, and you can make money out of it. But it doesn't do the sport itself any good. The players aren't coming through in the club levels. People don't see it on the TV. No one's enthused about it in the way that if you're a follower and you've got Sky, you can be. I mean, last year, the World Cup final was on terrestrial TV because there was a big uproar. Everyone was like, England are in the World Cup final of cricket and no one can watch it on terrestrial TV. It was a tragedy. So Channel 4 were allowed to show it, and the audience was the biggest audience for a cricket match that this country's seen since 2005. Goes to show, if you put it on the TV, people will watch it. And if it was taken off the whitelist in England, it was before that 2005 Ashes, wasn't it? And everyone complained then. It's like, no one, where are you going to get the next generation of players for if people can't watch it? And it's true. The kids here don't play cricket. I tried to get my son into cricket. Not interested. It's hardly ever on the telly. The reason I started doing cricket commentary was because I just had a baby in 2005-07. I had young kids and I really wanted to watch the cricket, and I wasn't going to be allowed to do it at home. So my then partner in that previous thing said, let's do this. And I was like, yeah, okay. And I got to watch the entire 2009 Ashes because that's what we were doing. And that's the only way I get to watch the cricket now is by doing this, really. I don't get to watch it.
Quite interesting, actually. One of our number as a Guerilla is the guy who did the rights deal for Channel 4 for 2005. So he has a very sort of real inside knowledge. I mean, when you were talking to us about, our view, our vision, and, a little bit about us, one of the key things we do is provide a voice for cricket followers to watch, enjoy, consume cricket that is unfettered by those kind of issues. Obviously, we do have to have a TV to watch somewhere down the line. But it's why I think we feel very strongly we do have an important role to play, because we're other commentary services are geo-blocked. We are not. We are fully accessible.
Anywhere in the world.
Anywhere in the world. We make ourselves as entertaining as we can be. We take it all very, very seriously, whilst also having huge fun doing it, and keeping a future audience and a broadening audience interested in cricket is actually to the positive impact of the future of the game. And if you find ways to close the game off for financial gain, you're ultimately just eating yourself. And it's an ever decreasing circle and a plug hole down which you kind of ultimately disappear. So that for us is hugely important, and it's why we've been doing work recently with people like the Cricket Supporters Association in England, because interestingly enough, they've gone to other media and the BBC, and they've looked for help, they've looked for publicity, they've looked for a voice, and they haven't found it. Because they're driven by a degree of those other services are driven by a degree of self-interest. I was going to say greed. I think that's harsh, but certainly self-commercial interest. And we can step outside of that. And occasionally, we do get recognised for a very positive role we play. So we find that I think a lot of the, let's call it the established broadcasters, the Skies, the BBCs, have an interesting sort of view of us, slightly scared, but beginning to appreciate the difference that we have, and actually seeing where we may be an annoyance on their back at times, but actually we're doing them some good at the same time, because they won't have anything to no rights to buy, nothing to commentate on, if love and following of the game dwindles. And we will always stand firmly to stand behind and support the game so that it grows and that healthy audience is there.
It's an interesting comparison with football or soccer. For all of the ills of organisations like FIFA, they have a clear remit to grow the game. In short, actually, they get richer by growing the game. The ICC is not set up that way. Listeners to Guerilla Cricket will have heard me kind of talk about this at length, but the ICC is not a governing body, really, in the truest sense. It's a members club, and it always has been. The incentive for the people with the power to grow the game simply isn't there as cricket is currently constituted, which unfortunately means that it hasn't. It means that decisions like the 10-team World Cup can be made. It means that nations are having to scrap and fight for test status and recognition. It means that 3-member boards can control the entire financial future of the game. It used to be 2. All of these things that keep cricket from becoming a proper global sport and keep more people finding out how amazing this sport is can happen. That doesn't happen with football, which is expanding all the time.
Just a add-on question to that, similar topic to this is I was reading some comments from David Lloyd recently, where he was telling that the Lord's Cricket prizes for India versus England is obnoxiously high.
Yep.
So and it's becoming more and more of like a corporate fixture for people to come in, because a family of 4, surely in London, they, in some sections, they won't be able to afford going into a Lord's small stadium. You haven't got much capacity, but there is demand, so you can raise the prices as much as you want and you would still get the houses full. But for a normal average cricket fan, it's not accessible for them.
Well, I'm afraid, yeah, you're right. I consider Lord's a second home, but largely because I go and watch my Middlesex games there. I always, use my county membership as an opportunity then to get myself on the preferential or earlier application list. Up until a year ago, I always had my Saturday ticket, and I took either one of my sons and met up with friends, and it was always quite a party. But I've stopped doing that. And whilst I'm still 100% Middlesex, I actually go and watch my Test cricket in the summer at the Oval, because it's more of a people's experience. One thing at Lord's just makes me cry, and I'm not sure my colleagues completely disagree with me here, but sitting watching a tense Test match and finding that the nursery ground is absolutely chock full with people watching it on the telly. It's like, if you've spent 150 quid on a ticket, for a test match on a Saturday at Lords, you kind of owe it to the game and everyone else that is sat in there to watch the the damn thing. So whilst I'm 100% behind creating a carnival around cricket and everything that goes on around it, and I think it's fantastic, you know, I always feel a little bit sad if I'm watching people just not bothering, saying, well, I've got, you know, you've got a telly at home. You could have a beer in one hand, you've got your telly. Why have you spent 150 quid to take someone else's seat if you're not going to actually be in the ground watching the cricket? And it kind of gets me a little bit angry. That said, I did once drink so much I fell asleep through a whole afternoon again in a New Zealand test at Lords. But, you know, anyone has the right to do that. I was at least in my seat doing it. There you go.
That, by the way, was Tony's application verbally for MCC membership. Talk about the Oval. The Oval, for those of you who don't know London very well, is in a fairly working class area of South London and a very ethnically diverse area of South London. I think it's the case that Lambeth, the borough that London is in, has the highest black population of any borough in London, but it's certainly right up there. That is not reflected at all in the test match audiences at the Oval. Not at all. And we're doing some things recently with the African Caribbean Engagement Programme in the UK, which was founded by Ebony Rainford Brent, with the aid of Surrey, the broadcaster and former England player who you may know. And prices is absolutely part of that. The prices of a Sky subscription to watch the game, the prices of tickets, the prices of kit to get playing the game. The lack of facilities in schools and the lack of accessibility of clubs in London, all of these things means that Surrey's doing a better job than it did, but a lot of counties don't actually reflect a large part of their sort of catchment area.
The next, slightly moving on to lighter topic, that was quite heavy, but your great insights, guys, really appreciate the views. So talk to us about the commentary today, and, how do you see commentary changing maybe in the next 5-6 years? The evolution, talk to us about it.
Ed, do you want to take that one?
Well, I mean, the short formats of the game have changed it. I think, us doing, I mean, it's kind of weird, actually. You do see sometimes broadcasters sort of actually stealing some of our ideas with music and jingles and things like that, seeped into the mainstream. And I don't know if that's because of us or whatever. But different forms of the game require different commentary. I mean, you've got, what's his name? Danny, the
Morrison.
Kiwi, Danny Morrison. God, he's doing the Abu Dhabi T10. I was watching some highlights of that this morning. He seems to be everywhere. He's ubiquitous and he's really annoying. But the more excitable part of commentary has definitely come into the shorter form of the game. I think there's still irreverence in the test game, but it's always, the problem with it is it's always ex-pros, isn't it? I mean, the India-Australia series, which I watched quite a bit of, had Shane Warne and all the other boys from, ex-test players, and sometimes they're really bloody irritating to listen to because they're just harping on about this, that, and the other. And people like us, I played cricket since I was 12, 13, stopped playing cricket when I was about 3-4 years ago. I have a very deep knowledge of the game. I never played professional cricket, but I know, as a bowler, I know my skill and I know exactly what I'm trying to do. And when I watch a game of cricket and there's a spinner on, I feel I've just got just as much right to my knowledge of my game. I may not have been able to do it in a test, but I know what I would want to do if I was in that person's position. I think I can describe that just as well as anyone else. But these doors are always closed to the average man like you and me. This is originally why this whole idea started. No one ever thought, we all wanted to commentate on cricket, and no one thought we'd ever get a chance. Turns out that some of the guys have come through our doors, have gone on to actually work for the BBC and stuff like that. So it proves you can do it, and the knowledge base is there. And that, if you've got a passion for it, I mean, it does take time to learn. We have people who come on who have obviously got deep knowledge of the game, but aren't very good at the actual talking on air. But you can learn that if you're in a situation. I mean, some of the ladies commentators on BBC and stuff, it's exactly that. There was this whole thing with Ebony Raymond Brent last year where people were going on about her commentary and stuff, and she's always having to answer for it. But the point was that she was given the chance, and they kept with it. And she may not have been very good when she started, but she's very good now. And so she's learned, and she had a knowledge of the game. She played for England for, what was it, 100 tests or 100 games or whatever. So she has the knowledge, and she had to learn to be a commentator. And anyone can do it. I don't think there's any doubt about that.
I think the internet as well. I mean,
yeah,
it's been obviously a game changer. It's enabled what we do. The social inclusion, conversational side of it. When you're using platforms like Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, if you have all of these live, you have a constant stream of conversation. I was listening through the night to a test I'm sure you both know and love, all the tests in Australia. And I actually think some of the ABC commentary was really good, by the way. And I'm certainly not going to diss it. Some of it wasn't, but I do have a one commentator I particularly enjoy listening to. But every so often they go, "What have we had in on the text?" It was like, "What century are you in?" When you have all of those social platforms at your disposal to engage your community and make them part of the conversation, you're reliant on a text number to send a message. I just thought that's like out the ark. What are you guys doing?
That's money raising. That's money raising, though, isn't it?
It is true. You may as well be reading a telegram to some extent. We've
had a carrier pigeon from someone in Brisbane.
Well, indeed, yeah. Also, people are paying to send in those texts, which is another thing. People are gatekeeping access and gatekeeping almost the right to an opinion. Now, it's absolutely important. When we are commentating on a game, the ball-by-ball commentator controls the broadcast, and nothing is allowed to get in the way of broadcasting as fully as possible what happened on that ball. That does absolutely not mean that we have to talk down to our audience. That does absolutely not mean that we have to exclude them from the conversation. We have proved over the last nearly 7 years, and before that with Test Match Sofa for 4 years, maybe 5, that those things can coexist and are possible. It's also there's a difference between TV and radio commentary. TV commentary, I think, unless you're Harsha Bogle or Fazir Mohammed, you have to have basically captained your country to get a gig as a TV commentator. Radio's different. We're an audio broadcaster. We broadcast on the internet, but we're essentially a radio broadcaster. We talk in detail about what has happened. We assume that people can't see the cricket, even though a lot of people do have the TV on and turn us down. So then the emphasis on those broadcasting skills is much more important than it would be if we were accompaniments to a TV picture. But a lot of TV commentary has gone like radio, where they're talking all the time, when actually you don't need them to be talking all the time because you can see what's happening. Those skills are different, and I think that the way that TV has become more like radio probably does both a disservice.
One thing, what this does prove, especially the last 10 years evolution on the internet and last year's evolution too, is kids watching no longer have a singular career path of playing cricket, right? You can talk cricket, you can write cricket, you can coach cricket. So that's what's fascinating for me moving into this kind of generation, that it's just not a singular way of approaching one side cricket career anymore.
But that isn't reflected in broadcasters, certainly not on TV.
Yeah. Writing more so. I mean, there's a lot of people who can get into writing, but I mean, the wages aren't there anymore. Everyone's trying to, the age of the internet has just pushed down wages for writers as well. I mean, anyone can write on the internet, let's face it, but are you going to get paid for it? Much like us.
Well, I was about to say, a bit like commentating, to be fair.
Well, anyone can start a podcast, but it's very difficult to make any money out of it.
Exactly. That's the thing.
Before we switch to England-India series, so sticking to the commentators, who are the top 3 best and top 3 at the bottom of the pile, according to you guys?
Oh, Lord, should we take a good and a bad one each? Akil, do you want to start?
Yeah, again, TV and radio commentary are different, so I'm going to make that that distinction. I think my favourite TV commentator is Ian Bishop, because he follows that Richie Benaud mantra of adding value to what you're watching. He does his research. He does the audience the respect of having done his research. and of knowing what he's watching and of liking watching cricket, which it seems amazing to think that some commentators wouldn't, but evidently they don't. And I've listened to Ian Bishop, and I usually come away with learning something that even I, as someone who watches a lot of cricket and talked about it a bit, didn't know. And then on radio, I think Tony mentioned the ABC commentary. I'm a huge fan of Jeff Lemon, the Australian broadcaster. I think his descriptive powers, his use of vocabulary, his rhythms are wonderful, and I really, really enjoy listening to them. I would probably honourable mention to Alison Mitchell, I think of the BBC, and who is a proper broadcaster.
Yeah.
I mean, we watch a lot of Sky, but I do like Michael Atherton. I think he's a very observant commentator of the game, and he's quite a thinking man's cricketer. I don't mind Nasser as well, actually. Wardy's quite annoying, but then that's his role, I think, on the telly. Channel 9, for whoever it was doing the Australia broadcast that I watched, they can all go in the bin as far as I'm concerned. I mean, Shane Warne's a funny one, isn't he? Because he can be really irritating, but when you get him on spin, for example, he is very knowledgeable, and it's quite interesting to talk when he talks about that. But when he's getting all upset because they're not doing very well, he just turns really narky and a bit odd, and it's not very good to listen to.
That last day in Brisbane, he made it quite evident.
Yeah, exactly. You know, it's funny. If you're an English person, it's funny because you hate the Australians. But I mean, it's not really the way to go on telly. I mean, it's the kind of thing we could get away with. But then we would have a team. The thing is, on that, virtually all the commentators are Australian. See, we would have, Knackle would be supporting India, so I could be getting really narky because England doing really crap. Yeah, but you're going to be supporting India in this Test series, and if I was going England doing really bad, then Knackle would be saying, complimenting that with, well, India doing really good, and it's not that you're doing really bad, and and like vice versa. We might have an Australian on who's just going to be completely neutral as well. So, yeah.
I think drawing that distinction between TV and radio was kind of interesting. I mean, I'm old enough to go back, not quite to Neville Cardus, although some have suggested that I could, but I'll remember John Arlott, Brian Johnson, Jim Laker, from my Richie Benno, obviously from my childhood.
Yeah,
but
Richie
my
Benno
current,
from my childhood, yeah.
Genuinely, Bear may hate this because it's an Australian, but my favourite commentator, radio-wise, to listen to is Jim Maxwell. He's kind of got that. He paints a picture. He doesn't overcomplicate. He keeps things simple without ever talking down to you. You never feel like you're missing a single thing. And he's got that kind of fireside favourite uncle kind of voice and persona about him while he's doing it. So I often think if I was actually sat watching cricket with Jim Maxwell next to me, I think it would make the experience better. I'm definitely with the Bear on Michael Atherton. I like his writing. I like his insight, and I think he's excellent on TV. I don't like people who are simply negative and contentious just for the sake of doing it. And I'm afraid, Michael Vaughan can be a somewhat negative, can be a somewhat negative consumer experience, for a marketing phrase. I haven't actually broken a TV while he's been on yet, but I've come close. Not because of he has the knowledge. Don't get me wrong, and I respect some of that, and I respect a lot of what he's done for England, obviously. But I just feel sometimes, he's saying something just to poke a reaction, and that doesn't always make good TV and/or radio. So they're my two kind of Jim Maxwell to Michael Vaughan, are my sort of higher and lower ends of a scale, with Athers sitting proudly near the top of that as well.
It's interesting that you can sometimes get someone who's it's about combination sometimes. Like Shane Warne can actually be quite good when he's with someone who is very sort of measured and who.
Yes.
But sometimes particularly when you get a bunch of players who played in the same team and who are, to quote Jeff Lemon, the blokiest blokes the matiest mates who ever mated, was the phrase. And it's just like they're back in the locker room again. This is an experience that very few people can relate to, and most of them are in that commentary box. So that, and then, Ian Botham slightly gave the impression towards the end of his broadcasting career that he didn't want to be there, which I think is unforgivable.
Yeah, you got to add colour, not cliche. Whilst when I've been watching the Big Bash, sometimes you feel it's the classic 3-man commentary team, and it 3-person commentary team, but there's never a cliche far away. By and large,
No.
And admittedly, you're all going to run out of things to say as another 6 goes flying down Canberra High Street. But nonetheless, you just do feel it's they've got phrases written up on the wall in front of them just to regularly use, and you go, oh Lord.
Well, that's T20 though, isn't it? I mean, it is. It's very repetitive.
Isa Guha recently has been coming up the curve. I really think she has energy and she has the knowledge to commentate for a long time. What do you guys think?
Yeah,
100%.
Isa Guha can do a lot of different roles very well. She can be an anchor, she can be a presenter, she can be an interviewer. She does sort of. I mean, TV has this weird thing where kind of the ball by ball and the summarizer sort of merge into each other a little bit, so you can never quite tell who's supposed to be doing what role. But she can do both of those very well. I mean, she's an excellent all-round broadcaster. And again, so like what Bear was saying about Ebony Rainford Brent, it's probably true that neither of them would have got the chance had they not been former England internationals, but they've both worked really hard at what they do, and they've been given chances, and they've become really good.
Yeah.
Definitely. All right, let's switch gears to England-India series build-up, if that's okay. So I'm going to bring up the tour schedule. So we're looking at Feb and March, 4 test matches, 5 T20s, and 3 ODIs. And all of these games are revolving around only 3 venues, which is Chennai, Ahmedabad, and Pune, due to understandable reasons. Will that be a factor for the test series specifically?
What you mean, India picking venues they do well at, by and large? Well, certainly that's true, I suppose, in Chennai. It's less true in Ahmedabad. It's interesting they're less used venues as well. So the venues they've gone to, when you go back historically, they I think the last test at Chennai was 2016. Okay, we all know what happened. Let's get it out there. England lost by an innings in 75, posted 400 plus, and who was it? It was
Karan Nair scored a triple hundred.
No, 300, 700 and something for 7, and it was all downhill from there. I think they lost last time out in Ahmedabad as well, didn't Pujara put them to the sword in 2012?
We got humped last time around anyway. It was 4-0. We won 4 tosses, batted first, got 400 4 times, and still lost 4-0. So
yeah.
So but this is the thing. I don't think there was an article today on Cricket Info talking to the new head the new head curator at Chennai, who has never prepared a first class pitch before, but has done a lot of pitch preparation work and study. Chennai hasn't hosted a test since 2016. The Ahmedabad stadium has been completely redeveloped. This is essentially a new pitch. I think to some extent, anyone who tells you how they know how these pitches are going to play is lying to you. Pune is historically a very batting-friendly track in ODI cricket, although it has taken turn recently. That ridiculous test in 2017 where the pitch was turning square from ball 1. India has a much bigger selection of grounds than any other country in the world, so you will get this thing where teams get a long time, or grounds go a long time between games. So it's a bit of an unknown quantity for both sides. I think what you probably will see is that because both teams have because of the balance in India's attack now, it's quite likely that given a choice, the pitches will be relatively well balanced.
Okay. And what about the squads? It's a little bit weird with England approach, isn't it? First 2 test matches, a set of people, and then for the other 2 test matches, another set. For example, Josh Butler, imagine he's scoring a century and goes back home, and then Bairstow comes. Bairstow scores a century, goes back home. How does that work with all the...
I think this is just we've talked about a lot. We talked about this a lot during the Sri Lanka series, and I think it is just the case that so many of these players have been so many bubbles for so long that a bit of leeway has to be given, and I think it was predetermined. And it does go against the grain. You keep your best side out there and winning, and but Folkes is a better keeper, and Butler will be aiming towards the T20 World Cup if that goes ahead. He's a white ball player as well, as vice captain in that. We have other keepers. I mean, they could bring back. God, please don't do it, but they could bring back Burstow as a keeper as well. I mean, he's gone home. He's coming back out later. And it's just a question of the pandemic situation requires that people are going to need rest. I mean, they rested Archer, didn't they, for Sri Lanka? We could have done with him out there. It turns out we didn't need him, but you want him in any side you play. And the interesting thing about the first test is Broad and Anderson doing so well in subcontinental conditions, and they're definitely going to play Jofra because they just need the change up. If you go in with 3 fast bowlers, what's the rest of your side? And therefore, it looks like either you probably have to. I mean, I would be tempted to bring Moeen back in, which is harsh on Dom Bess. But you want a left and a right arm spinners. So there's your 5 bowlers, which then means that Butler probably bats at 6. Interesting. I think it's an interesting selection.
I think as well.
Sorry, go ahead, Tony.
I was going to say, I think as well. I would credit the ECB with actually taking a pretty enlightened attitude to players' welfare, players' mental health. I thought our friend old jazz hands Nirishan Dickwella was interesting, and his little comment to Johnny Bairstairs about he's not going for the first 2 tests because of the proximity to the IPL and all of these kind of things. But you have to look at how I think the ECB to a certain extent has embraced the IPL rather than fought against it, and has won a World Cup, don't forget, with players who've gained massive experience in white ball cricket as a result of it. I think you've got to think about players' time in bubbles, and a few of them, Jos Buttler being one of them, have been quite outspoken about how difficult it can be. The thought that if you have a bad day and you're out for naught, at home you could go away and in normal conditions, you go away and have a round of golf, you go out for a cup of coffee somewhere. Now you've just got to sit in your hotel room and probably look at the pitch you made your naught on, So there is a weird claustrophobia, I'm sure, that must embrace players, and you've got to be able to take them in and out of that. So I think it like so many sports nowadays, it's a squad game. England have embraced that. I think they're quite enlightened, to be honest, in doing it. And I don't think it's going to necessarily massively weaken them at any point because of that depth. Whoever you drop, you bring someone in equally capable. Okay, you might lose some punch power with Jos Buttler, but you bring in undoubtedly England's best wicketkeeper, who, by the way, has made a century and is more than a capable batsman in spinning conditions. I worry a little bit, perhaps, about Moeen Ali for a number of reasons. But again, I think there's other strength in depth. My big fear might be that all this talk around the wickets, and it might be an English thing. You could easily be suckered into thinking, "Oh, let's get the gang back together," and then on day 2, you think, "Oh Lord, what have we done?" when it suddenly changes character a bit and it's no longer seaming and is turning. But I think you have to embrace strength in depth, and I think England have done that. And I think there's reasons for optimism from an England perspective, whilst acknowledging it's not going to be easy.
Look, this is how England and India both have significant playing resources and monetary resources available. This is why you build up those resources for precisely situations like this. We've seen that India had basically a third choice seam attack through the last 2 tests in Australia, but because of the resources, because they were able to have those players at a level ready to step into Test cricket and perform. Like the likes of Mohammad Siraj and Shardul Thakur and Natarajan were able to step up. And yeah, they're not as good as Ishant Sharma, Mohammad Shami and Jasprit Bumrah, but they were able to be very effective. And this is how this is how, to quote, this is how a superpower should behave to some extent. Other countries won't be able to do this to the same degree. It's also true that even without COVID, there would be a need for a lot of rotation. England are playing a hell of a lot of cricket this year.
Yeah.
This
year is nuts. If you look at the schedules, it's just crazy.
It's really in 17 Test matches and a World Cup. Which, by the way, England could become the first team ever to hold both white ball trophies simultaneously in the ODI and T20 World Cup. That's not a small thing, and Owen Morgan would want that as a legacy. England have a chance to become a white ball dynasty like Australia were in the mid 2000s, but that's going to need planning, just as much planning as the ODI World Cup is going to. And it will be frankly negligent to try and keep this group, the same squad together for this long. Personally, I don't think any of the fast bowlers on either side will play all 4 tests.
Yeah, I agree.
I think another thing that's kind of interesting, I've been having a very engaging conversation with our friend Guerilla, an India Dutta, who's the author of Wizards, The Story of Indian Spin. And I've been arguing with him basically that, okay, so you've got a world-class captain for India, 100%. What a player. He is fantastic. Virat Kohli. India get rolled for 36. He says, bye. They then, playing a team that's sort of held together with bits of string and sellotape, and everyone's calling it India's C team, turn over Australia in their own backyard. And literally, I guarantee you, all English cricket fans were lying awake at night there going, come on, India. And then now back he comes. Back will come all the big names. How are you going to feel if you're Ajinkya Rahane? How are you going to feel if you're Washington Sundar? I have just a feeling that India will have to manage. You can talk about big egos, big players, and I think India might just have to manage the spirit in the camp a wee bit to do that right.
It is a double-edged sword situation for India. I'll tell you why. Because let's take MS Dhoni. In his era, all the wicket keepers, unfortunately, no matter how good they were, never got an opportunity to play the highest class of cricket. And I think in the next 2 years, there are certain breed of cricketers in India who will go through that phase, unfortunately, because filling a gap is going to be tough, especially you have frontline players. But Nakul, I do want to touch upon one point on the T20 World Cup. Though you mentioned that England might have a great chance, but my bold prediction this year will be Afghanistan probably having a wild chance of pulling the T20 World Cup.
Look, Afghanistan will be a danger if they manage to select their best team, which is not a given how I went through a thing of trying to track all of the changes at sort of top brass level in Afghanistan, and essentially their headquarters has a revolving door fitted to it. It's pretty difficult to keep up with who's meant to be in charge. But certainly, not many teams will want to come up against Rashid Khan, Mohammad Nabi, and Mujib on a pitch that's offering any sort of assistance to the spinner. Those 3 are all world class, and they've got some very exciting batters. I don't think they'll win it, but certainly Afghanistan could be a fun team to watch. But anyway, there's a lot of cricket before we get to the T20 World Cup. I just noticed on the England squad list, a couple of guys we haven't talked about: Ollie Pope, who's fit again, and Dom Sibley, who's just probably saved his spot for a little while with that 50 in the second innings in Gaul.
I'll tell you one thing I think might happen. Rory Burns is back in the squad, Moeen Ali back in the squad. But I have a feeling England just might be looking at left-handers, and Ravi Ashwin, who tends to sort of gobble them up for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, doesn't he? And I'm not sure they'll risk 2 left-handers. So it'll be interesting to see how they make their selections come the morning of the first test in Chennai. I think with that in mind.
I think they will have to. This is a question of whether you...
Nakul, you were saying something?
I was just going to say we can't quite hear Bear.
That's because that was up there. I was going to say, this is my point about the bowling. As you say that, if the pitch is spinning, you were saying, Tone, do you want Broad, Anderson, and Archer? Well, you have Archer because of what he does with the ball and his height, and the fact that he's got a lot of experience bowling in the IPL anyway, and knows India quite well. But then Broad and Anderson got an extraordinary amount of wickets for bugger all runs on exactly those sorts of pitches. And
the trick with Stuart Broad is you just got to leave him out the first test, and then feed him on a bit of raw meat, and then he'll come roaring back for the second test, won't he?
Well, the thing is, you forget what we forget about. I mean, these two are the best two seam bowlers in the world. That's not, India have got Bumrah, etc., etc. These guys have got 1,200 test wickets between them in an inordinate amount of tests. They bowled everywhere in the world, and now they're taking wickets everywhere in the world in very challenging conditions. If they're not doing that, they're not going for runs. So there is an argument to have them in there. Which then, as I said, leaves you down with two spinners, and then it's harsh on Don Bess, but Leach and Bess. I mean, I was going ballistic on. I think it was day 2 or 3 of the second test. They, when you look against Indian spinners and their control of line length and flight, it's just leaps ahead. Leach is much better than Don Bess. Don Bess is very inconsistent, and as a spin bowler, you've got to be able to bowl dots, maidens, and then get wickets with the right balls. And they don't bowl enough dots and they don't bowl enough maidens. And in India, that's what crucified us last time when we lost 4-0. Our spin bowlers just couldn't keep run rates and those sorts of things down.
And it's also what was our roots of our success in 2012, because you had Panesar
and
didn't you?
And Panesar just put it on a spot, and so did Swan. Yeah. And the pitch did the work. But if India can score 3.5 and over against our spinners, you're never creating any pressure. And I think with Leach and Bess, you'll get that. Moeen Ali offers you extra with the bat, hopefully, and bats lower down the order. And I don't think it matters that he's left-handed. If him and Burns come in, you've only got 2 lefties in the top 7 or 8 anyway.
Well, I think England might employ a bit of containment. I know Nasser Hussain tried it. Had 8-1 fields. He had was it Caddick and
Giles
Goffey, coming around the wicket and digging it in at rib cages. But I don't think this England are very adaptable. This is the thing. This is one of the things that has come into the game. I'm sure to a certain extent for all countries, but I think they can change their game according to the needs of what needs to be done. Whereas Nasser, I recall, said about his team at that time, he had injury issues. We had a strict game plan. We tried to stick to it, and actually they still lost the series, largely because I think India won the first test and then just hung on. But I think this England team, can dial up or dial down different aspects of their game as the game dictates, because they have the extra experience in one-day cricket, but that then you apply to the test arena in terms of that adaptability. Jos Buttler's a great example. Yes, he may not be the world's greatest batsman, but he's dug out some decent test match scores. At the same time, if you need to dial it up and attack, you can do. If you want Jofra to bowl containment, he can do that all day long for you. If you want him to put it up the nose of a batsman who's not too keen on short pitch bowling, he'll do that for you. So I think the adaptability to a shift game plan on the hoof is a particular strength of England at the moment, and boy, will they have the chance to show it, because they are up against a stiff challenge.
And it's partly experience as well. James Anderson, his average in Asia is now, I think, 28 or 29 now. This is what, his 4th, I think, tour of India. Stuart Broad and Anderson were actually quite good last time in 2016. The problem was that they were having to do it by themselves, a little bit like the 2017-18 Ashes, where it's very difficult if there's no pressure at the other end. You can just play out a bowler, and that's basically what Pujara did. And it's Pujara's game plan is block the good balls from the fast bowlers and then feast on spin. He's a very fluent player against spin bowling, and his is a sort of extreme example of what India were able to do last time. And then the seamers get tired, and then you can score heavily off them. England's attack is a lot better. England's pace attack is a lot better than it was in 2016. Broad and Anderson are better bowlers than they were then, and they were pretty good then. Jofra Archer is a world-class bowler in the making, if he's not already. He's certainly very close. But Broad and Anderson, because of that experience, they can execute whatever plan you want them to execute. And there's 2 superbly good seam attacks on both sides. I mean, India have Mohammad Shami to come back in for the 3rd and 4th test, perhaps, or Umesh Yadav, who've both been very successful in India. it'll be. Look, I can't wait to see Jasprit Bumrah bowling in a test in India. I can't wait to see Bumrah and Archer bowling in the same test. I think that's a mouth-watering prospect.
I also think Indians, I mean, the old adage of England batsmen was they couldn't face spin, wasn't it? But I mean, with the advent of the IPL and so much of this franchise cricket going on in different parts of the world, and you stock bowlers like Rashid Khan playing in every single tournament, and loads of leggies in the IPL and all this kind of things. A lot of these batsmen have faced a lot of turning balls on turning wickets and slow-paced wickets as well. So I think it's much less of a surprise to them when it happens, and they can cope with it a lot better. I mean, the way Joe Root played the sweep in Sri Lanka was, if he does that in India, it's going to frustrate the hell out of those guys.
Thing, right? Ashwin and Kuldeep and Washington and Akshar in the bowling group, and Jadeja when he comes back in, they're top of their priority list to some extent is, how do we stop Joe Root scoring so heavily off the sweep? He's been out since that 2016 tour. You may have read this article in the Telegraph. Averages 300 with a sweep. He's only been out with it once, and he scores at well over a run a ball with it. It's absolutely remarkable, and he can sweep. He can sweep pretty much anywhere from mid-wicket round to point, pretty much with the reverse sweep and the sweep. He's remarkable at it. Butler plays that shot very well. He comes down the track well. Ollie Pope is very light on his feet. Dan Lawrence, who I expect probably won't play in that first test. He's a very good player of spin. Bairstow, if you need him, is a very.
He was
good
told
player.
so by Dickweller, wasn't he? He's a good player of spin, this one, boys. I remember him saying
Naroshan Dickwell has evidently been watching those Essex live
got
streams.
himself out twice cheaply in the second test.
Naroshan Dickwell obviously watches his county cricket. He's been watching those Essex live streams. But what England are very good at is they don't just kind of prod from the crease and hope, like a lot of players do. There's players who, like Joe Root, if he can't sweep, gets right back on his stumps and cuts or pulls, or it means that he can score a single off a ball that most other players will be looking to defend, which just makes him that much harder to bowl to. So work out how Ashwin and Kuldeep and Washington and Akshar and Jadeja and Bharatharan, the bowling coach, work out how to stop Joe Root playing and scoring so heavily off the sweep, and then make him come up with something else. It's all these little challenges that make international cricket and Test cricket in particular so great.
Yeah. I'm interested in where you've laid out your two teams there. As you have two spinners for England, you've put Moeen Ali in amongst the middle order. I think if Moeen plays, it will be for his experience in the spin department more than his batting.
Yeah, he'll be down.
You may have been interestingly placed in that. The way you've put those teams there up on that caption.
Moeen was a proper all-rounder in 2017, in particular, that summer of 2017. His batting in long-form cricket hasn't been where it is. I mean, I'm sure we've probably all got our proposed 11s for the first test, and I can tell you that Moeen is not a middle-order batter in mine.
Yeah, and then lots at stake. World Test Championship, the top two spots, and one other factor which none of us spoke about is a hungry Virat Kohli is going to get back into the test side. So time will tell as to what will that break for him and a fresh entry into the family will mean. But it will be a fantastic series going in. So real quick, going around the table, Bear, predictions for test series?
Well, having talked up England, I'm really quite pessimistic about the results. I think we might get a draw in one. I'd like to think it would be 2-1 to India, but I've got a funny feeling it'll be 3-0 to India.
Tony?
I'm going out on a limb and saying I think it's going to be 1-1 with a couple of draws. I'm looking at Ahmedabad has over the years has got slower and more batsman friendly. I think if England can bat long, I fancy them to steal a couple of draws and one win. I think that's as good as it's going to get. But I'd be more than happy I'd be happy to be right if my 1-1 proved to be so, I can tell you.
Nako?
I should just say, by the way, that I am of Indian descent, but I'm certainly not an India fan. One of the things that I've found over commentary is that I actually care less and less about who wins and more about the game, and I find I enjoy cricket more that way. A couple of that third test is an interesting one because it's the day-night test with a pink ball. It's going to be interesting. It actually probably brings both teams' bowlers into the game. as much as no one will fancy facing Bumrah, Ishant, and Shami, but no one will fancy facing Archer, Broad, and Anderson and Wokes with a pink ball either. So it's going to be fascinating on a pitch that essentially is a completely new surface. India have lost one home test since England last won in India in 2012. That's 8 years now going back that's been the case. I think it's a phenomenally difficult challenge for England. As Bear said, there's a lot of very good cricket, I think, that's going to be played in this series. It could well be, my suspicion is, it'll be like when the reverse of when India toured in 2018. Lots of competitive test matches, but a quite one-sided final result. And I'm also going 3-0 India. I don't like predicting whitewashes, and something, some oddness could happen, but my prediction, such as it is, would be 3-0 India.
Okay, that's great.
What about you guys? What do you reckon?
I think it will be 2-1. One will be draw, and 2 for India. I think it will be 2-1 for my end.
That, by the way, wouldn't guarantee India qualification for the World Test Championship final. They need to win by 2 clear tests.
Correct. So that's why I said a lot at stake. So because England are fresh off 2-0 hammering, they have good practice on the subcontinental wickets, I would think, and rotation of players might work out their way. They definitely are going to give run for the money for India.
I think they will definitely win the series, but I think England might win the pink ball test match because they wouldn't have had that, experience of facing quality seamers when they played Bangladesh under lights. So I think that will be the one where England have the best chance.
So you're going 3-1 India?
3-1 or 2-1. One, maybe a draw, same pitch, Ahmedabad, twice. Yeah, probably. Difficult to have draws these days with so many results coming in. So
cool.
Okay, so time for some fun.
Fun for you.
Pleasure. Yeah.
Okay, Sanjay, take it away.
Yeah. So how we'll do this is, so should we do in the order of Nakul, then Bear, then Tony? Okay. So we got 9 questions, I think. So hopefully 3 each, and we'll declare a winner. Discretion is on me and Suman, even if you get the right answers. Okay. So for you, Nakul, first. That's the question. Last tour of England to India, who were the 2 openers to feature alongside Cook in the series?
Well, one of them is, someone who was talked up as, the great hope of future English batting, but has had a horrible time since, Hasib Hamid, young man. And then, surely the only South African-raised England opener to do better on the subcontinent than anywhere else, Keith Jennings.
Yeah.
Absolutely right. Yeah, Hasib Hamid promised a lot, but, unfortunately has, fallen off since then. But excellent. Right. Next one up. Nigel Baird. Headingley Ashes Test 2019 with 2 runs. Stokes was adjudicated not out of Lion. Unfortunately, Aussies had burned the review. Who was the umpire, if you remember?
No idea. Erasmus. Just out of... I can't remember the umpires. Marius Erasmus.
I'm trying to picture it. I can see it in my head, but
Exactly, same here.
My concentration was the other end of the pitch.
Should have been out. I mean, it looked out to me. I'd have given it, but hey ho. They didn't have a review. Yeah.
Anyone else wants to have a go?
Joel Wilson.
I would say probably Joel. I would have said Joel. Known affectionately to us as the blues singer Blind Joel Wilson.
Well, that's who I was trying to think of, but I couldn't remember his name.
Right. Next one. Tony, this is for you. 2007 England-India series. England lost that 1-0. Who was the only Indian batsman to get 100 in that series?
In 2007. I mean, the temptation is to say Tendulkar, but that would be too...
Think left field, yeah.
Far. I'm suspecting it was probably a bowler. When did Ravi Ashwin play his first test for India, Nakul?
That is after 2011.
Too early.
Yeah.
Think of someone taking lots of wickets for India, and that was the only Test 100 he got.
A wicket taker. Am I thinking a spinner?
Yep.
I'm thinking of a spinner. It's not Ashwin. Oh gosh, who was? I can picture him. Tall. I think if it's who I'm thinking of. Who preceded Ashwin, Knuckle? Give me a clue.
I mean,
So
you've basically named him in all but name.
I know. That's what's getting. So give me just one more clue because I know who I'm thinking of.
Just
give me the first initial.
A.
Anil Kumble.
Excellent.
Excellent. Oh, that is yeah.
Oh, there's more. I thought we'd done it now. One each.
No.
100%
Three each.
success rate.
We got three each.
Can we declare?
3 each.
Oh,
So,
no.
right.
These all go back further and further now.
this comes back to Knuckle. 1987 World Cup final, Eden Gardens. The famous reverse sweep by Mike Gadding. Who was the bowler?
Be interesting to see how that was seen now, given how much more the reverse sweep is accepted. Also, probably he would have played it a lot better if he were a modern player. Believe it was Alan Border.
Indeed, it was. You knew the answer all along. You just trying to.
Knackle knows everything. I know nothing.
We did actually have our own quiz where we've been raising money with Sussex Cricket Club. We actually had a round called Challenge Knackle, which people paid money to try and catch him out. Which they normally did because I was the quiz master and I just made sure they got their prize anyway. But
Well, let's see if he gets this.
there were some very devious questions there, I have to say.
Right. Next one for you, Nigel. Player who was born at Kowloon in Hong Kong was only at Sussex for a few seasons before moving on to Warwickshire and finally Somerset. He was then regularly heard commentating on Channel 4 Test match program. Who are we talking about?
I want to say, I'm thinking Mark Nicholas, but I don't know where he was born. I'm going to say Mark Nicholas.
He didn't play for. I don't recall him playing.
I don't know who he played for.
Mark Nicholas was a Hampshire man.
Yeah, he's Hampshire.
That's right, he was. But he's the only one I can remember from the Channel 4 days. Who else was on Channel 4 commentary? God, that's going back
Am
such
I
a
right
long.
in thinking that it's not someone who we regularly hear or see on the airways these days?
Even I don't know the answer to this one. Suman is the one who set this up. So
Pretty sure he was a very successful.
Well, you're allowed
I'm
to
trying to.
give Bear an initial to work with or some clues, Knuckle.
Well, I think if it's the person I'm thinking of, he captained Warwickshire through the mid-90s. That team that had Lara in it. Possibly more famous for off-field activities than on.
Oh, yeah. Would its initials be DR?
Yeah.
That's who I'm thinking of.
Dermot. Okay.
Wow.
Are we allowed
Dermot
to-
Reed. Oh
Reed.
my God.
Knuckle,
Ah.
good one.
I've forgotten he was on the TV doing
I
a
tried
comment.
to help you out. I even gave you the initials, Bear.
Yeah,
DR.
I know, but there's a lot of people
Not
done a lot of
decision
things.
review.
Yeah.
Dermot
Great.
Reed.
Next one, Tony. This is for you. Only visiting batsman to have 300s at Lord's, the second home of cricket, as you mentioned.
Again, I would say not Sachin. Too obvious. A visiting batsman to have 3. I'm wondering if it's an Australian.
The clue is it's an Indian. It's
Oh, it
not
is an
Sachin. Sachin didn't get even one. So
Yeah, that's what I thought because I remember watching one with Sachin batting, and I can't remember he got out for 67.
and this is in Test matches, by the way.
Yeah. No, I'm assuming that to be the case. Era? Can you help me with the era?
Think late 70s, 80s,
Late 70s or 80s? Sonny?
more 80s.
Not Sonny Gavaskar. Knuckle?
Another Mumbai
Yeah.
batter, I think.
Again, give me an initial then. Help me out a wee bit. So I don't look
the
completely
person I'm
dark.
thinking of, DV.
Yes.
Man, Knuckle, how good are you doing?
I was going to say Ben Sarko. Yes, he's very good.
He-
Very good, and you can't have him. But if you do want him, I am open to negotiation for an appropriate transfer fee and maybe a bung if we meet in a car park somewhere.
I can send you over a rate card after we're done.
For a sack load of cash handed over in a car park somewhere. I think, Sanjay, you said you were in the UK. You can have him.
Right, we'll take the next one. Nakul, this one's for you. I'm sure you'll get it, so no pressure. 2012, the famous England-India series, which England won. Who was the highest wicket taker in the series? There could be one or more answers.
Interesting.
You're talking about the series in India.
This is the one that.
Yeah, this was the India
one.
Monty and Swanee.
This is probably someone we've already mentioned, isn't it? In dispatches.
Yes, one of them. Yeah.
So Graham Swan.
Yeah. So there were two people who ended up in same number of wickets, 20 each. So one of them was Graham Swan, looking for another spinner from the Indian side.
India's lead spinner in that series was Ashwin. Pragyan Oja. Oh,
yeah.
The left-hander, yes, I remember
Forgotten
that.
man. Yeah. His career ended rather unfortunately, from what I remember.
The crown has slipped a shade. The pandy head.
Nigel, this one's for you. This is a very easy one. Ben Foakes, Prithvi Shaw, Keaton Jennings, Rohit Sharma, Shikhar Dhawan, Jonathan Trott. Find the common thread.
They all got tons on their debut.
Absolutely right.
Awesome.
Yeah, I fucking got one right.
I was going to say, it would be slightly embarrassing given that you were on commentary for about 4 of those.
Oh yeah, I probably was.
This is the last one I think we have. This one's for Tony.
Oh, we covered the IPL, Lord.
Top run getter in the IPL. England player I'm looking for. Which English player is the top run getter in the
Talk about this last season or
no, overall.
Top...
In IPL history.
Okay.
I think that's quite easy.
Not Morgan.
Yeah.
I don't think. Not Bairstow.
Someone who might be on rotation. You almost. Yeah.
It's not Joss because I don't think he's played enough.
No, the IPL has been going a long time.
It has.
My answer would have been Joss Butler.
No, I go KP.
You're going KP.
Kevin Peterson.
Oh, Johnny B. Oh, okay. There you are then.
Had a couple of remarkable.
As Nirashan said, he's going for the money. Obviously, because he keeps making runs there.
Pay for cash.
Yeah. Pay for
cash, rather.
Yeah.
Well, listen, this has been fantastic chat. We absolutely thoroughly enjoyed Bear, Nakul, and Tony. Thanks for your time. And for the folks who are watching, do follow us on Twitter at Waadaplaya. Remember, drop in a comment and give us a feedback about what you liked, what you did not like. We are happy to continue to create the content. And Guerilla Cricket, all the very best for the upcoming England-India series. And thanks for joining our show.
Thank you very much. We've enjoyed it.
Thanks for having us. Yeah.
Sorry, it would be slightly remiss of us if we didn't tell your listeners how they can listen to our show.
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
So at guerillacricket.com is our main way. We also broadcast. We have a fancy studio setup and graphic setup. We broadcast at Crick Tracker's Facebook page, facebook.com/CrickTracker, and also on Hot Mic. And join us on Friday at 3:45 a.m. UK time.
Ooh, GMT, yeah.
Another early start. Excellent.
Another early start, yeah.
Yeah. Take care, guys. Thanks very much.
Cheers. Thank
Thanks
you,
a lot,
guys. Take care.
Yeah, bye.